Last month, I finally found my calling, that life mission that I've decided I want to dedicate my entire existence to. Welcome to my channel. My name is Eddie Cespedes, and this is my $1 million diary. In this channel, I document my journey to $1 million in net worth. So we'll just get right into it. Today, I just wanted to make a video that was a little bit more personal, something that just hit me last month. So for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been searching for my purpose. And I don't mean that in a spiritual way or a philosophical way. I mean, like I literally sat down and I was trying to put my thoughts together because I wanted to really figure out what it was that I wanted to do, what it was that I wanted my life mission to be, so to speak. And the reason why I was searching for this, embarrassingly enough, was because I just wanted to make more money. And I have my reasons for that. But the when I was doing some research on YouTube, a lot of the financial gurus that were out there, people that I respected, and I understand there's a lot of financial gurus out there that people feel like they're scam artists, and some of them are, some of them might be a little bit more legit. But to be honest, it doesn't matter if they're scam artists or not. Ultimately, I only want to listen to the message, and there's always something that you can take from everybody, even if you don't like the person or you don't respect their hustle or whatever it is that they do. There's always something that you can learn from them. And so one of the common themes that kept reoccurring was the idea of having a purpose. So the people that make the most money are typically the people that have a purpose or a life mission, something that they dedicated or that they're committing their entire existence to. So if you take a look at Elon Musk, he, as of the time of this recording, he is a trillionaire, has been a trillionaire for about a month and some change now. He dedicated his entire life. If you could would summarize his mission, it would be to save humanity. That's why he has aspirations of putting people on Mars, trying to terraform Mars. He has SpaceX. He was a pioneer for electric cars. It's all things that he feels like he wants to contribute to humanity, regardless of how you feel about him, how you feel about his political opinions and things like that. That is his life mission. That is what he works towards. And as a result, his mission, his goal is so large that as he works towards it, he just makes a lot of money, especially when he's being successful in every step of the way, or most of the steps along the way, as he becomes more and more successful in this huge goal. That 1% of success towards his final mission is just worth so much more. And so, I mean, you could apply that to like Jeff Bezos and all the other big time entrepreneurs, probably Steve Jobs and things like that. But they all have a mission, they all have a purpose. You don't have to agree with it, but they do have a purpose, and that's what they work towards. And as a result, they end up making a lot of money. So, because I wanted to make a lot more money, I've been looking for that purpose. Now, for certain, you can just side hustle your way to a million. You can sell your way to a million, but to make real money, you typically got to have some kind of mission. And even if you don't have, like, let's say you don't have a side hustle or anything like that, but you have a mission, you can still make significantly amount of wealth, even if you're not a millionaire. Let's say you're starting from zero, right? So, anyways, not to get sidetracked. So last month everything finally hit me, right? So where do I take off from here? Yeah, so the last month when I was trying to put thought to or pen to paper on my thoughts and trying to come up with some strategy to achieve my $1 million goal. But really, I'm thinking past that. I'm trying to think maybe 20, 30 years ahead. Is really 30 years ahead. I was trying to make a 30-year plan. And I was trying to think of all the things that I was interested in, right? Maybe finance, maybe some of my philosophical ideas and things like that. And I was able to put everything together into one thing. And that is my mission, if I make it a simple elevator pitch, is to save America. And I know how that sounds. I know that sounds kind of quirky, sounds kind of corny, but it's really like sounds a bit hyperbolic. But what I mean by that is that, to give some a backstory, is that I am an immigrant and I came from somewhere that didn't offer what this country offers me. And I want to be clear about something. I would never go back to that country, even if it gets fixed. So I'm from Cuba, right? Even if everything gets fixed or the political structure changes, I have no intentions on going back because I've seen the alternative. I've lived there and I see what things are like. And then I lived here. And one of the most traumatic experiences in my life was getting off the airplane in Miami and being in America. Everything was just different. Everything was night and day. The small apartment that we stayed at felt like a mansion. It felt luxurious to me. And to give an example, it was like a 700 square foot 2 room apartment, very small. But just the fact that it had AC and then you had to get on an elevator to go upstairs, and it wasn't even in a good area. But to me, it was different. It was night and day. It was such a huge upgrade. So I will never go back, right? And so for that reason, I have a deep appreciation for what this country has done for me. And I know the sentiment is not there, especially in the youth. And I believe personally that a lot of the problems that have happened today in society, the problems that we have, are due to hopelessness. So people have kind of stopped believing in the American dream. They feel like they can't achieve it, and it's always easier to blame somebody, especially with how the politics today, they're so divisive, and people just start listening to certain talking points. And I feel like politicians prey on people's ignorance. So I believe that the public education system um, has failed a lot of people. I believe that in this new world, people are still trying to apply old world tactics to a world that is vastly different than our parents and way even more different than our grandparents. And with this new world, with this new advance in technologies that we have, we need to operate differently. And I believe that public school is not teaching kids how to do this. College is for certain not teaching kids how to do this. And so I believe the American dream is still achievable. The issue is that people don't know how to achieve it. And schools throughout the last few decades, probably maybe 5, 6 decades, they've been taking things out of the curriculum that they feel is unnecessary, but that it is necessary. Like people leave high school, don't know how to balance a checkbook, they don't know how to write a check, they don't know how to manage their finances, and I think that's a huge crisis because I believe if a society is financially illiterate, that is really the collapse of everything else. Because if people, and this is what I truly believe, I believe people in today's society do not know how to manage their finances and they don't take personal accountability. And I think there's a plethora of things that have caused them to do this. But the main one is I believe there's been a lack of financial education. So with that, they also the politics and I believe all these talking points that they preach, like uh, um, things are too expensive and it's hard to afford it. And then now I believe things like this are being repeated so much that people just forget that things have always been expensive and things have always been getting expensive. That's literally how the economy works. Things always get more expensive over time. Nothing's different. The only thing that's different is the medium, maybe like usually social media, that people use to communicate these, and by people I mean politicians, that they use to communicate these ideas and to spread these ideas, and they become more widespread and more accepted. Let me pause it real quick. Yeah. And so, sorry, I had to take that message. So, so these ideas start being spread, and then people start believing it, and then I believe it leads to hopelessness. And that hopelessness is dangerous because that means that people can come in and sell you a belief, and especially politicians. They'll prey on that hopelessness for votes, and then that hopelessness just compounds over time. So, for example, I believe if you have if you have a problem, right, and you're hopeless on it, and you're very pessimistic on it, as a salesman, I can come to you, and then based on those problems that you have, you become very easy to manipulate. That hopelessness makes you a target because now all I have to do is make a valid argument. And by the way, valid does not mean truth. In an argument in philosophy, an argument can be valid and still not be true. So all arguments are made to be valid. And a lot of people today haven't really been taught this. but just because they think something sounds valid, they equate that to truth. And so once the politician comes and sells you this valid argument, you go ahead, and I don't mean you, but like people go ahead and buy into it, even though the argument is completely false. And so I believe the more hopelessness a population is, the easier they are to manipulate. And once that happens, you start introducing ideas such as communism, socialism, things like that. And then the whole social fabric really starts to fall apart. And I do believe end up getting to a point of no return. And I think we're probably somewhere in there at the point of no return. But I mean, it's worth fighting for what we have, at least in my opinion. And so, with that said, I've decided that my goal, my little bit of contribution, will be to try and help people achieve the American dream. Try to get them into a financial situation where they don't have to be hopelessness. Because I think that if people are no longer hopeless, then it becomes a lot harder to sell them something. If everybody or the majority of the population is financially okay, then now that puts pressure on politicians and the system. Now they have to work for your vote. They can no longer just sell you talking points and expect them to work. And I think that's important in order for the country to continue to function. You can't have hopeless, like people who are hopeless. You can't have this divide where you have some people who are fighting and striving and love the system, and then they come out on top, and then the majority of the people, or a good chunk of the people, are in hopelessness, so they don't even bother to try, and then they fall further and further behind. Because the way the economy is set up is that you need to play the game. So I want people to play the game of capitalism. You don't have to think it's perfect, but you do have to play, because standing still in an economy that is always moving forward, you are going to end up falling behind. And this is something that people don't understand. And I've been doing some research and reading some articles, and I found that a lot of the younger generation, they've kind of just completely checked out of the system. They will blame the price of, they'll blame inflation, the cost of goods are going up. They'll say things like they want higher wages because the cost of housing has outpaced wage growth. And to be honest, like that'll be for a separate video. But yeah, like on an apples to apples, yes, price of housing has completely outpaced wages, but you can still have a house. And that's when people have that hopelessness. Well, if housing just keeps getting more and more expensive and my wage is not really growing as much, then oh my God, like I can never afford a house. So they just completely check out and just don't even bother to play the game. And then instead of trying to save money, they just think, well, why am I going to save so much money? I would much rather spend it now, uh, spend it on experiences and not even worry about that because I'll never have it. Or wait till your grandfather or your parents pass away to acquire the house, and then think that's the only way I'm going to acquire a house. Like no, the American dream is there. You can have whatever you want in this country, whatever you set your mind to, whatever you want, if you work towards it. And I know that sounds like that's an elementary cliche that was always said to me, but I believe that if I want something, I will go get it and I will have it. And in this country, I can't do that. Other places, you can. So the system is not fair. I completely agree. And I think that's a byproduct of a free society. Anytime you have a free society, inequalities becomes a byproduct of it. If you want to be free, you're going to be unequal. That's just how it is. People have different biological advantages. People have different status advantages. They have access to different informations. But just because somebody has an advantage over you doesn't mean that there are things that you have that can also, or things that you have access to, or tools at your disposal that will put you at an advantage over them. It's a game of give and take. But in this system, I believe as long as you're an able person, you have two hands, two legs, average IQ, you are a functional adult, you can have whatever you want. And I think that's the idea that I really wanna drive home. So I want people to really, not so much only financially, but I want people to know how to play and how to be successful in capitalism. And so that is why the first phase, and if I go back, tell a quick story, back in like 2020, I feel like I had figured out how to play this game of capitalism. And in my mind, it was kind of like I already had a certain plan it was like a 35-year plan. And I knew I was gonna have a few $1 million, like by the time that I retired, maybe 5, 6 million. I never wanted to be super wealthy, and to be honest, I still don't. But I knew I was gonna get there, and so I set a certain amount of money every month, and I try to invest a certain amount of money every month, and I try to do things a certain way. And a lot of times, especially when things were getting kind of heated during, politically during that time, I'd have arguments with people and I would tell them, oh, well, every time they argued about something, I would tell them, well, yeah, you might be true, but there's stuff that you can do to to get out of the bad situation that you're in. And then when I would try to explain to people, well, this is kind of how the system is set up. It's okay. It works. Everybody would just look at me and they would say something like, well, are you rich? Are you wealthy? Are you a millionaire? Do you have $1 million? And at that point, the argument would end. So I realized there's really only one way to do this, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to get there. I'm on path to getting there, but they don't see that. And I can't say, oh, yeah, well, I'm a millionaire. No. And it sounds stupid to say, oh, well, I will get there. Right. And then, all the negative Nancy's are always going to just laugh at you as they did with me. And so that would dead the argument, because now we're just, if I'm trying to explain to somebody that this is how the system works, and then they ask me, well, what's it done for you? And I'm not a millionaire. They just kind of say, yeah, exactly. The system sucks. So I'm arguing theory with somebody else's theory. It never gets anywhere. So what I decided to do was, okay, well, screw that. I'm done arguing with people. I just want to get to $1 million of net worth as fast as I can, just so that if I ever end up having the argument and somebody says, well, you're a millionaire, I could just say, yes, I am. And then at that point, that takes that weapon away from them. They can no longer argue from that position. And I kind of have an idea where the argument's gonna it's gonna end up going, like which direction they're gonna end up taking, and that's probably not gonna work out either. But the biggest weapon I'll have completely taken that weapon from them. But after doing that, which is also why I want to document this, after doing that, I needed a plan. So this is phase one. I do it first. I try to document it. And that's why now I actually want to document a lot more, because in the early beginnings, I barely documented anything. And to be honest, if we're looking through this $1 million diary, there really isn't like a whole lot of exciting or important things to really share. But now that things are really kind of like taking off right now, I want to try and make it a point to post more videos, because I think these videos will, even though they get no views and they'll probably never be watched in its entirety, this is the body of evidence that will be used, number one, to combat all the naysayers, to shut them up, and then what will be used to try and inspire people, and so that they can know that they too, that this American dream is possible. And then I believe strongly that if we can get everybody to function like viable adults, basically teach them the right values. And I don't mean like moral values or anything like that. I just mean values and like take pride in your work, because I see a lot of people do not have any pride in their work, and I think that's terrible for productivity. Like, it's terrible for society for people to not value work. Throughout all of human history, we've always valued work. So work is important, and people really don't feel that way today. But I want to show them that if you do work, and then you have the right knowledge, the right education, that anybody can be successful. It doesn't have to be being worth $1 billion, but you can be successful enough where you're not thinking about your money all the time, where you're not thinking about where you're going to get your next meal the following day, or where you're not thinking about how behind you are on bills, because that is stressful. It's very stressful. I've lived through that. It's not good. Like, you wake up having palpitations every day. It's a crazy state of mind. But also, if you can just, that's for another day. If you, what I was gonna say was, if you can move throughout life with that same hesitation and that same anxiety while you're okay, like, that's a really good way to just get ahead of everybody else. But that's not relevant for this video. So yeah. In conclusion, I'm probably gonna make a bunch of these like this video. I'm gonna repeat it probably a few times, uh, just so that it kind of stays fresh in my head and becomes like the theme of the channel throughout all the way. Um, so yeah. So in conclusion, my goal, my mission is to save America. Basically, I want to tell everybody, or I want to show everybody that the American dream is attainable, and I want to be able to guide them through it. That's really all it is. And yeah, so finally got this video out, and thank you guys for watching. And until next time.